I think another important thing to consider is, we're also not advocating for people to get massive amounts of debt. Like that's not the goal, is to get massive amounts of debt. I think this follows through with whatever you're going to do. You talk about student loans, whether it's student loans, whether, whatever, having credit cards, anything that you do. The whole idea of having that leverage to be able to borrow money, get an education, and for a while you just pay a little bit because you're building up, but eventually that paid off tenfold because now you do very well and you've got that knowledge and you've paid it off and you're going on. It's the same thing with the house. You may just be kind of scraping at the first, but the idea is the long game. And it should be the same with credit cards. It should be the same with everything. When I borrow money, it's not because I want to, just go buy some stuff, I mean, we very, very rarely borrow money. We try to save, and I know that, and I'm not saying everybody can do that, and I can't even always do that. I do have to borrow money at times, so I'm not saying that. But the idea is, is to have assets in place where you can live on them. If people just are taking that, this is one of the big problems we had in the last crash, is that people would take their low, they bought a house and they didn't put a lot into it, and then they would refinance their equity out and then refinance their equity out and refinance their equity out, and they kept doing that because interest rates were low and they could keep pulling it out, and they're buying boats and they're buying razors and they're doing whatever they want to in their life, and then the market goes downhill. They can no longer sell it for everything they've pulled out of it. They have spent every penny of their equity. And that's what people don't realize. People will say, well, I didn't make anything on my house. You took thousands of dollars out over years and years and years, and you didn't make good choices with it. I think when it comes down to it, the idea is start building equity, start building wealth, and do something good with it. Like with your student loans, there's nothing wrong with taking out a student loan, but be smart about it. Don't take out a $200,000 worth of loans for a job that's going to pay $50,000 a year. That's not a wise investment. Don't get a 50-year mortgage and sit on it for 50 years. That's not a wise investment. So the idea is to leverage these ways of borrowing, even if they're not optimal. You're not always going to have optimal circumstance. I'm not always going to have, a low payment, 2% interest for whatever amount that I want. You're not going to have that. But the idea is to take it and use it to gain the wealth, and use that wealth that you gain wisely, hopefully, to gain more wealth, and not just to be throwing it around and saddling yourself. Yeah. So when people think they're saddling themselves with all this debt, you could be.
Yeah.
Or you may be building your best investment you've ever had. It's really up to you. How are you going to use that tool? The tool is not bad.
Yeah, being strategic about your plan and your vision for your life is important. It's a key component. We had a lot of peers that came out immediately with the 50-year mortgage and like, this is terrible. This is debt, debt service that people will never be able to pay off. This is indentured slavery, And they didn't think about it like this, like how I think about it. I would 100% use a 50-year mortgage. You know why? Because I would buy an investment property, my payment would be lower, and I would pay on it like it was a 15. But if I got into a pinch, something happened, then I could default back. I can slide for a couple of months and have a lower payment. But in the meantime, I would pay on it as if it were a 15-year mortgage until that point.
Huge strides with every extra payment that you make.
Yep. So those things factor in. This is absolutely a tool that can be used, and I think it will help with the movement in the overall market if it's done right. That's the big thing right now. In real estate, you have to have movement. There needs to be movement. And there's so many homeowners out there, which we don't blame. They're sitting on, I'm one of them, sitting on my, 2.75% interest rate or 3% interest rate.
Why would you move?
Why in the world would I sell and lose that interest rate if I weren't advancing myself in other ways?